Get the roots out!
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 horror comedy Werewolf Cabal. The film is written and directed by Chris Sanders and it stars Danny Thompson, Vernon Wells, Kylie Ospel, Antonio Willens and Derek Nelson. Right, okay, I will try very hard to explain what this film is about. The film focuses on, I'll break it down as simply as I can, an American author who travels to rural UK, and while he's staying there, he discovers that there are some locals that like to worship werewolves. That's about the cut of its jib, really. And that's the best I can give you in regards to some kind of synopsis here. What are my thoughts on Werewolf Cabal? Well, unfortunately, guys, I didn't particularly enjoy this film, and that's putting it lightly. I'm going to try and be polite while I'm doing this review, because this was a real chore to get through. I'm not going to lie. Now, this was from the same people that brought us Nest of Vampires, which is a film I covered on this channel 2021, I think. That was a hot mess. It wasn't a good film. It was one of my least favourite films of that year. And unfortunately, I suspect this might be going down the same path. I don't think it's just as bad as Nest of Vampires, but it is definitely a mess. Now, it's described as a horror comedy, but I would literally challenge anyone who is able to laugh at this. There's genuinely no humour in this at all. There's some attempts right at the beginning at kind of slapstick humour, people getting stuck indoors as they're trying to exit rooms and police acting like buffoons, that type of thing. It was almost like the Three Stooges, but done by people that had never watched the Three Stooges. That's the kind of humour you're looking at here in some aspects of this film, but not all. In other parts of the film, it almost takes itself too seriously. So you'll have a scene that actually feels quite serious, and then you'll have one of these scenes like a Scooby-Doo scene where two characters are peering around a door type of thing. And that's about the extent of the comedy, unfortunately, we get in this film. It didn't raise a smile. And, that's not me trying to be overly critical, because I've said this many times. I do think horror and comedy is a very difficult blend to get right. And for me, if you're going to try and do horror comedy with a werewolf film, you're in for trouble, because the big daddy of the comedy werewolf films is obviously An American Werewolf in London. It's a very dark comedy at the heart of it. And this film doesn't even come close to being mentioned in the same breath as a film like that, unfortunately. And it's no surprise. I mean, you shouldn't really go into this film with really high expectations. It's a low-budgeted film, and it shows throughout the majority of the film. There are some actors that I think are passable and decent, and there are other actors that are giving below-par performances here, unfortunately. And this is one of those films that werewolf sightings are very sparse. And when you do see them, you can understand why they're sparse, because essentially it's a man in a suit. There's no other way of putting it. Now, I think the werewolf head is decent enough. It is lit cleverly a couple of times in the film. There is what I would describe as a passable werewolf transformation scene for a film of this budget. But definitely don't go into it expecting anything major in regards to that. But those are about the biggest compliments I can give this film. I just really struggled with it, because it's one of those films that is chock full of characters who add nothing to the film. And it almost seems like they're there for filler, because there will be characters having conversations about absolutely nothing for 5, even longer minutes at a time. Dull conversations. This is not Tarantino type dialogue, unfortunately, guys, where conversations are interesting between characters. The conversations aren't used to flesh out characters or their motivations, really, for the most part. And then you get like characters that are meant to be acting like villains who are more pantomime than villain, if you like. It's just... I could forgive like the pantomime acting for the villainous roles because it's a horror comedy if it had have like gelled into the movie better, if the movie had flowed and felt quite amusing and, you know, was engaging and interesting and even felt like a threat. It only felt like this werewolf turned up occasionally for no real purpose other than to take out a character who you don't know for the most part. And the rest of the film is just weirdly sewn together, like I say, of these characters who you don't really know. I couldn't tell you a name of any of the characters in the film because none of them were memorable. Certainly none of them were funny. And Vernon Wells, I'm sure many of you who watch B-movies will know that name. He's obviously a bit of a legend for Mad Max and Commando and things like that. He's in the film very, very briefly at the beginning, playing like a police chief, I think. And again, that's just really weird. It starts off with him berating his policeman, and then there's somebody telling a story about what happened over in England. And it's like, what was that all about? It just didn't fit the film at all. It was almost like, how can we fit Vernon Wells in this film? We've only got him for a day or so, write a scene. And it feels like that's what it was done. It felt rushed. At times this film felt rushed. It felt like they were struggling to put things in the film, so they just added dialogue for filler. And the shame is as well, I do think at times in this film, underneath it all, there was a bit of a fun film to be had at times. But it just drew out so long and it was such a chore to watch. Unfortunately, I definitely cannot recommend this one to you guys. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. I will be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.